Today, I'm going to be creating a futuristic map of the USA. In this fictional scenario, all of the United States is broken up, and all 50 states are independent. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel, and let's start. Right before all 50 states go independent, major cities around the country start becoming their own states. These places include cities in Southern California, such as Los Angeles and San Diego, so they go independent. Chicago goes completely independent away from Illinois. New York City becomes its own state, and those are the major cities that become states. The United States also makes Puerto Rico and DC into its own state, and shortly after this, the United States collapses, so all 55 states are now independent. Right after the collapse, the three poorest states in the United States, which are Mississippi, West Virginia, and Louisiana, all collapse. Right before Louisiana completely collapses, the small section of land down here next to the Gulf of Mexico manages to break off, with its capital being in New Orleans. Now we have 3 areas of land without a government and is vulnerable to outside attacks. Texas starts moving into Louisiana and manages to take a majority of the land. So once the surrounding lands are divided up between the surrounding states, this is what the new borders look like. So Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, and New Orleans all get land from the collapsed states. Meanwhile, West Virginia is divided up like this. So here are the borders of the United States a few years after the collapse. We have many states gaining land, we have a lot of the poor states collapsing, we still have the city states, and stuff like that. In California, there is a movement in which people want to make these cities also their own countries. So we have most of the coast of California breaking away and forming its own country. This inspires movements throughout all of the Pacific states, and places in Oregon also start breaking apart, as well as Washington, most of the cities becoming their own country. This also inspires a movement in Las Vegas, which breaks away and becomes its own country. At this point, both Nevada and California are doing terrible economically without their cities, and they decide to form a union together. This new union is obviously stronger than the 2 states were before, but still isn't the most powerful country over here in the West. Now once again, keep in mind that this video is very fictional. This is an alternative future kind of video. Obviously this probably will never happen to the US. I mean, maybe, I don't know. But this is probably unlikely, and just remember that this is just for fun. Anyway, moving on over to New England, Massachusetts decides to open up relations with surrounding New England states such as Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Vermont, and they all come together and decide that a union would be the best for all of them. This New England union is really strong and puts the state of New York on high alert, feeling threatened by the new power in the Northeast. Texas, which is kind of hungry for more land, decides that it wants to start invading some of its neighbors in order to get some land back. In these war scenarios, red represents the attacker and blue represents the defender. So Texas starts pushing into New Mexico pretty easily. New Mexico is a pretty poor state, so there isn't much resistance. Santa Fe falls and the rest of New Mexico surrenders. The rest of New Mexico is pretty weak after this war and starts to fall apart, with Colorado and Arizona both taking the rest of New Mexico. A few months after invading New Mexico, Texas starts an invasion of Oklahoma. The war for Texas is pretty easily as it pushes through the Panhandle and starts taking over all of Oklahoma, capturing Oklahoma City with Oklahoma's surrender. Instead of leaving some of Oklahoma, Texas takes all of Oklahoma, proving itself to be a threat in the region, with Kansas, Colorado, Missouri, Arkansas, and Arizona on high alert. Upstate New York, which is sick of having New England next to it, decides to go to war with it, which ends up being a big mistake because New York City joins the war on New England's side. At first, it goes pretty well for New York as they manage to take a lot of Connecticut and western Massachusetts, also taking a lot of northern Vermont. Conscription in New York City happens and they start moving up upstate New York. At this time, New England fully mobilizes and manages to push New York out of the state. And the war of upstate New York begins with the New England and New York City alliance pushing all the way through and capturing Albany. At this point, New York surrenders, and the Northeast looks something like this now. Soon after the fall, a Pennsylvania Civil War takes place, with Western Pennsylvania declaring war on Eastern Pennsylvania. This does cause a chain reaction in the region, with New Jersey supporting Western Pennsylvania and New York City supporting Eastern Pennsylvania. Upstate New York would join on the side of Western Pennsylvania, but they just got out of the war with New York City and New England, so they're going to stay out of this one. Ohio, which is hoping to gain land in Pennsylvania, decides to declare war on Western Pennsylvania and help out Eastern Pennsylvania. Now that's a lot of Pennsylvania, but hopefully you caught all that. So in the Civil War, Western Pennsylvania starts pushing into Eastern Pennsylvania, while New York City starts pushing into New Jersey. The goal of the red side is to wipe out the 2 powers over here as quickly as possible and move the troops over to Ohio, which is probably still mobilizing at this point. New Jersey is also not mobilized at this point since they were not ready for war, while New York City is mobilized because they just got out of war and all their troops are still all together. Most of the blue side over here starts to fall pretty easily as New Jersey starts to push back up and even manages to take a little bit of New York City. So this is going to play out like World War War I, where Germany was hoping to take out France before Russia was mobilized, but they got mobilized quicker than they thought. In this case, Pennsylvania was going to try to take out eastern Pennsylvania, but Ohio got mobilized sooner than they thought. That was kind of hard to word together, so I hope you caught that. I'm tired and I'm a little bit, tiny bit sick right now, so yeah, I hope that made sense. Anyway, Ohio starts to push into eastern Pennsylvania, taking over Pittsburgh, and this is pretty much the end for the red side now. New York City manages to push back into New Jersey, while eastern Pennsylvania starts to push back into western Pennsylvania. At this point, there really is no hope for western Pennsylvania, as it falls to both Ohio and eastern Pennsylvania. This is what the outcome of the war looks like. So New Jersey is completely gone, New York City takes the northern half, and Pennsylvania takes the southern half. Pennsylvania and Ohio make an agreement that lets Ohio have the Erie region, which is like the northern part of Pennsylvania right here, and a little bit of western Pennsylvania, since they got access to the Atlantic. Now obviously this can be expanded even further, but I feel like if I keep going on, the video is going to get too long, so I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Some wars that are probably going to happen sooner or later are the wars between Wisconsin and Michigan, and probably some wars against Florida down south, with like Alabama and Georgia teaming up on Florida, or vice versa, something like that. Obviously Texas is going to try to become the most powerful state in the US by taking out Colorado or Kansas or something like that. And really you can go anywhere with this scenario. So this is going to be my futuristic map of the United States. Obviously this is really unlikely, probably not going to happen, although the borders are kind of messy over here in the west. Like, it's kind of like some HRE stuff over here, but if you really think about it, this is mostly just cities and coastal areas. So that kind of makes sense if you think about it like that. Like I said in the beginning, leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. It really helps me out. If you guys want to join my Discord server, there is a link in the description. Suggestions are always open, so feel free to leave yours in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.